Namo Buddhaya. Good evening. Welcome to the Buddha Dharma TV. I am Karen Tan. Today, we start our program, as always, with a blessing service. We are going to listen to the powerful chanting of Ratana Sutta, and it is conducted by Venerable Bande Indaratana. To attain the desired calmness, please listen to the chanting mindfully, calmly, and peacefully.
Namo Tansa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhansa Namo Tansa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhansa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhansa Itipiso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vinjacharana Sampanno Sugato Lokavidu Anuntaro Purisa Dhammasarati Santa Deva Manunsanang Buddho Bhagavati Swangato Bhagavata Dhammo Sangdinthiko Akaliko Ehi Pansiko Opanaiko Pancantang Veditambo Vinyuhiti Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Ujupatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Nyaya Patipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Samiji Patipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Yadidang Chantari Purisa Yugani Ante Purisa Pungala Esa Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Ahuniyo Pahuniyo Dankiniyo Anjali Karaniyo Anuntarang Punyang Kentang Lokansati.
In our upcoming segment, Venerable Ajahn Amora articulates a compelling insight into a very often popular but deep to understand topic, that is anicca in Pali language, and in English it is impermanence, and the topic is seeing impermanence and becoming free from self-view, the Buddha's teaching. Let us welcome respectfully the Venerable Ajahn Amora to enlighten us on this deep topic. This is the first part of his enlightening sermon.
Well, I think the best way of understanding it is that there aren't really any things. Say, well, things are impermanent because they aren't really any things. They're processes that never stop transforming. So there is no actual sort of abiding in time, because even when we say something is in the mind, it's in a state of change as it's being known. So that you can say this is a building, or this is a monastery, but anything is a convenient fiction. Like say, I am Ajahn Amaro, or this is a building, or this is Dhammagiri Hermitage. That's a convenient fiction for the purposes of, well, this isn't the government building in Canberra. It's Dhammagiri Hermitage in Queensland. So for convenience and for sort of making our way through a day, then we use these ways of designation. But I would say that it's more accurate to see there aren't really any things. But for convenience we say floor, ceiling, person, building, etc., etc. And so in a way there is no such thing as impermanence, because there's no thing to be impermanent. But there's the four elements, and the mental realm is in a constant state of transformation. All those aspects of the physical and mental world, the Rupa-khandhas and the Rupa-khandha and the Nama-khandhas, they're constantly in a state of flux. And even if something can be said to hold together for a long, long time, like a proton, you can say, well, if you know a bit of physics, it takes a long time for a proton to decay, but it will. But then what do you measure that long time against? If you measure it against a human life, it's a long time. If you measure it against the life of universal timescales, it can be regarded as very short. So things that we consider to be permanent or long-lasting, it's important to consider the scale that we're measuring things with. So that one of the aspects of mind that I feel is useful to contemplate, the Buddha said, it's pamanakara, it's a maker of measurement. So ignorance is a maker of measurement, desire is a maker of measurement, fear, aversion, it's a maker of measurement. So when we measure things, big, small, long, short, beautiful, ugly, then those measurements are influenced by the conditioning of the mind. And similarly, when talking about his own nature, the Buddha said the Tathagata is liberated from being reckoned, from being measured in terms of form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness. So I think that, I feel that in terms of this kind of contemplation of anicca and the material world or the mental world, that just taking a simple principle like greed is a maker of measurement, aversion is a maker of measurement, and the delusion is a maker of measurement, pamanakara. And incidentally, that's spelled out in detail in a discourse given by a layperson to a monk, one of the very few. There's not many. But there's a very, very wise householder called Chitta, as in heart, mind. And so he's a very brilliant Dhamma teacher, and he's giving this Dhamma talk to a monk. Anyway, so pamanakara, like the greed, hatred and delusion, they're makers of measurement. And without greed, hatred and delusion, then the mind doesn't make those measurements or doesn't believe in the absolute nature of those measurements. So in a very simple way, Luang Por Chah will take something like this and say, is this big or small? Well, if you're a mosquito, it's quite big. If you're an elephant, it's very small. So how big is it? Is this big or small? Is it heavy or light? Well, if you're an ant, you would have trouble picking it up. But as a human being or as an elephant, it's quite light. So is it heavy or light? And that he would use these ordinary everyday ways of helping us to reflect on that. The way we measure things, we determine things, beautiful, ugly, good, bad, should be, shouldn't be, and so on, because of our habits of judgment. So with respect to anicca, that kind of reflection or understanding, I don't know if that's helpful for what you're asking, but that kind of way of seeing that, anything that we call a thing, I mean, like the Pali word sankhara is very close to the English word thing, which has a big range of of qualities it can refer to. That as soon as we call something a thing, like this is a bell striker, you know as you say that that's a convenient fiction. It can't be an absolute fact. And so that if we really take that to heart, then assuming anything could be permanent becomes ridiculous. That you're not surprised by things changing, because how could they not? You're not surprised by instability or uncertainty, because, well, how could it be certain, or how could it be stable? It's just not the way things are. Even like, as I said, like in the material world, you can say, well, space is permanent. Well, not if you study physics on a cosmological scale or microscopic scale. No, space is very conditioned. Or like a material form, a proton or a neutron. Okay, well, they last a really, really long time. Well, yes and no. So that way that the mind looks at the material world, the mental world, then is changed. You're not looking for permanent or expecting permanence or stability in a place where it can't be established. And again, as Luang Por Chah will put it very, very, very simply, if you're looking for stability in that which is unstable, you have to be disappointed. If you look for certainty in that which is uncertain, you have to be disappointed, because you won't find it there. So when the contemplation of anicca, developing the anicca sanya, is taken, I would say, as the kind of, within the southern Buddhist world, that's the chief way of developing, the kind of main gateway for development of wisdom, is to develop the anicca sanya, the perception of uncertainty. And so that it changes the way that that the mind habitually looks at our possessions, our mental faculties, our relationships, the world around us, the things that we cherish, like say, this is a really wonderful monastery, this is so perfect, this is so ideal at the moment, but this is a very combustible world. And so that the way that you hold it is with a different attitude. There isn't the kind of unconscious sense of owning. And again, another of the very helpful reflections that Luang Por Chah would give was that he'd hold up something like this and say, "This is a broken cup," or "This is a broken glass." And I fully I was saying this when I was at Buddha Bodhiwana monastery, that at first I thought, that's interesting, I can't see the crack. I thought, it's not even, he's got some water in it, it's not even leaking. Well, it can't be that broken. So I didn't quite get the point, first of all. And I couldn't understand the Thai in any detail at all. But what he's saying is that if you can see that this is already broken, that one day the elements will come apart and you won't be surprised or disappointed. That rather, it's the change is continuing, rather than this is a cup. That's what it said. Well, no, it's a set of, it's earth, water, fire, and wind in a state of change. This was earth, probably Australian earth, maybe Chinese earth, or Thai earth. It's Thai, made in Thailand. Thai earth. Maybe Chinese earth put together in Thailand. But Australian water, Australian heat. So it's earth, water, fire, and wind put together in a certain form, and we call it mug. we call it, a Thai mug with beautiful decorations. But if there's a recognition, if there's a development of the anicca sanya, it's like, well, that's just a way of talking about this particular collection of perceptions. There isn't really any absolute mug there. And so that the more that the anicca sanya is developed, then it changes the whole way we relate to the people around us, the places where we live, our own physical well-being, the society. We stop taking things for granted. And we become more appreciative. Okay, in this moment, this is very helpful, very useful, but any moment it can all go. So it changes the attitude, and so much of Buddha Dhamma and the training, the kind of embodying the Eightfold Path, is to do with changing the attitude. So that developing the anicca sanya, the perception of uncertainty, is about transforming the attitude, how we relate to our body, our personality, our career, our relationships, our possessions, and so on and so forth.
Just want to follow that up. So how tight should we hold on to things? Like, should we let go, or should we hold on but not too tight? What's the attitude? Like, what should we?
Well, if you really consider what I was just saying, what is there to hold on to? You can't really hold on to anything, and there isn't really anybody to do any holding. So talking about letting go is already kind of, you're halfway down the track. It's like there isn't really a me who's actually holding on. It just feels that way. Like, well, I'm not ready for this. I don't agree with this. Yesterday in the vehicle, I was talking about this fellow I knew in California, a guy called Ken Price, and he's a very practical guy, very sort of can-do American fellow. The only clothes he owned were Levi jeans, cowboy boots, and check shirts. And he had like several sets. He didn't have any other clothes. That was a kind of regular American guy, and he used to run a repair shop in the local town. And he was the kind of can-do guy. Nothing would get in his way. He was very sort of rigorously independent. So he also didn't look after his health terribly well. So and where he lived was quite damp, and so through the winter times he'd get pneumonia or pleurisy, serious bronchitis and such like. And he'd walk from his home to the clinic and he had like double pneumonia. I guess I should get some treatment. Anyway, he was a very sweet guy, very kind of no nonsense, and so he had some more chest pains and some lung problems, and he walked from his home to the clinic, keeled over on the lawn outside the front of the clinic, and so the nurses all sort of came running out and started looking to take care of him, and he's lying there and says, "What's happening?" He said, "You're having a heart attack, Ken." He said, "Oh." And then we're calling the helicopter. What? I'm not ready for this. Like I haven't booked one of these. and it was his daughters were telling me the account of this, and they strapped him onto the gurney on the side of the helicopter because where he was living was quite remote. There was no really good cardiac place nearby, so I had to fly him into San Francisco to get treatment. And so they'd strapped him onto the gurney outside the helicopter to fly him into the hospital. And as they were strapping him, he said, "Okay, I guess I'm ready." But his first thought was like, "No, this isn't my program for the day. I can't be having a heart attack. I've got things to do." Yeah, like, well, different program. And so that's in a sense of going from wait a minute, I didn't ask for this, or this shouldn't be happening, to here it is, I'm being strapped on the helicopter. He actually died on the flight into the city. So I did his funeral. They told me the stories at his funeral. So, but he was ready by the time they took off. But I was touched by that kind of contrast of, I'm in charge of my life. I know, I make decisions here, And then nature says, do you? So that sense of letting go, it's not really ours to let go of. It's not really ours to own. There isn't anything that can really be owned. So, Luang Por Chah would talk about holding but not clinging. So we hold this body, we hold the material objects, this coffee cup, So we pick things up and we use our bodies, our minds, the material world around us, but without an attitude of grasping or ownership. And so that then we look at the things of the world, our bodies, our minds, the living situation that we have. These are things we are connected to, our families, this body, the living world. We're connected to it, but the citta, the heart, can relate to the living world from a place of non-ownership, non-possession, that anadana, not owning, not an attitude of non-ownership, non-possessiveness. And then, strangely enough, when we have that attitude of non-possessiveness, we're able to be much more effective in helping other beings, being useful for our family and in the workplace. So, that holding but not clinging is a good principle. Things even when Luang Por Chah would use a phrase like holding but not clinging, it means using our capacity to act, to make choices, that things can be done, words can be said, actions can be taken that genuinely benefit other beings. That's the case. We can make choices, and those choices make a difference. Otherwise, the Buddha would never have taught, right? So we can make choices, and the choices do make a difference. So that's the case. So that's the holding part. But the clinging part is like, I want this result, and I don't want that result, and it's me who's responsible. Oh, it's me who's responsible, or I'm in charge here. I didn't agree to this. And that all of that clinging, that always brings more tension, more agitation, more suffering. So in terms of developing the path, then it's a lot to do with learning how to let intention and action, Samma Sankappo, the second factor of the Eightfold Path, and Samma Vayamo, in particular, right effort, be guided by mindfulness and wisdom. So the choices that we make, the direction that we set for our life, the way that we work with in our job, in the family, in the world, that if that can be based on mindfulness and wisdom rather than on me and mine, then that's in a way guiding that quality of holding. So if we have skillful intention, skillful effort, then that informs the samma vacha, the right speech, samma kammanto, right action, samma achivo, right livelihood, that informs all of those. But that's not easy to do. You can't just say, okay, from today onwards, no more self-view. Switch that one off. This life will solely be guided by mindfulness and wisdom from now on. That's a good idea. Because the one that's making that decision is not the same as the one who's driving the what about me and what I like and my preferences there. One is Apple, the other is PC. They're on different programs. If you follow what I mean. So
what you mean things like just acting in your own capacity of understanding and just doing good for the majority of people. Whatever happens as a result of that, it's just up to the nature.
Pretty much, yeah. It's the more that action, intention, action, and decisions can be guided by mindfulness and wisdom, rather than my mindfulness or me being wise, me doing the right thing. But the more that there's the I and me and mine is left out of the picture. And if we use the meditation and wise reflection to develop that skill of not letting the habits of self-view guide even the meditation. Right? I need to practice. I need to get rid of my chattering thoughts. I need to develop concentration. I need more wisdom. I need to get rid of my defilements. I'm unenlightened. I've got to do something now to become enlightened in the future. You might think, well, isn't that the plan, Ajahn? That's what it says in the Dhamma, the list of good things to do. But if you listen to the words I was using, it's like, I've got a lot of chattering thoughts. I need to get rid of my defilements. I need to get more concentrated. I am unenlightened. I need to be more enlightened. All that I and me and mine doesn't need to be there. So, and Luang Por Sumedho's teachings have focused on that a lot for the last 30 years or so. 40 years probably. Since the early 90s. 40 years. Since the mid-80s, I would say that he's focused a lot on that. So he'd say things like, the idea that most of us think I'm an unenlightened person who's got to do something now to become enlightened in the future. You sit there listening to that and say, right. Isn't that the program? Yeah. And he'd say, so we need to change the paradigm from I am an unenlightened person to be awake now. Because if we go with the first one, I am an unenlightened person, then the practice of Dhamma is being cast in the mold of self-view, starting from a position of I am and believing in that. So rather than starting with self-view as a sort of fixed reality, I am an unenlightened person, in a way it's taking a step back and saying, well, here's the awake mind is capable of knowing all those personal qualities arising and passing away. This mind that knows the person isn't a person. This awareness that knows the personal is not a person. Like the Buddha said, that the Tathagata is liberated from being reckoned in terms of form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness. As he's sitting there right there having a conversation with Vajragota, and he says, the Tathagata is liberated from being reckoned, can't be measured in terms of the five khandhas, even as there's a body sitting there talking to another human being. You can't define this quality in terms of the five khandhas, in terms of our usual reference points. So when we say, I am an unenlightened person, then right there, there's self-view is being sort of inked in. And so what Luang Por Sumedho would try to encourage us in his teaching to get a sense for is, that to practice Dhamma in accordance with Dhamma is to be guided by mindfulness and wisdom, not by me and mine, that I'm an unenlightened person, or I have got a lot of defilements I need to get rid of, I've got to develop concentration, I've got to get more insight. So that it's not that insight is not useful or concentration is not useful or that defilements are not obstructive. They are. But if the effort to practice Dhamma is all based on I am a person, I exist in time, I was born on such and such a date, I have this name, this nationality, that's all self-view, 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 self-view. So, and that's the first obstacle to enlightenment is Sakkaya Ditthi, self-view. So his teaching, Luang Por Sumedho in particular, would shine a bright light on that. Look at the way that the mind keeps inking self-view in and taking that as the basis. And the more that is done, then the result is necessarily going to be dukkha, disappointing. Yeah. So that, and most meditation retreats and teachings that I've given in the last 2 or 3 years, I've tried to emphasize this. One of the fourth of the 4 factors supportive of stream entry is called Dhammanu Dhamma Patipada, practicing Dhamma in accordance with Dhamma. So the alternative is practicing Dhamma in accordance with self-view. So if practicing Dhamma in accordance with Dhamma, Dhammanu Dhamma Patipada, then that then the efforts and the direction being given are not based on self-view. They are guided by mindfulness and wisdom itself. And sometimes when we're looking at Buddhist practice, then it can seem like any kind of directionality or any kind of effort is going to be stressful. Like, they have people like Krishnamurti wrote a book called "Truth is a Pathless Land," or there's a famous Dharma book, "Journey Without a Goal," I think by Chogyam Trungpa. So the idea of no effort to be made, no goal, no effort, and all the efforting or any kind of goal is somehow stressful. But I would say that's a wrong understanding of the Eightfold Path, personally. Because otherwise, how could samma sankappa, how could there be right resolution, right intention? There has to be a way that setting a direction for our life is totally in accordance with Dhamma, otherwise that couldn't be a part of the Eightfold Path. So there has to be a way that decisions can be made, like, yes, this is a good way to go, that's a bad way to go. Those choices can be made completely based on Dhamma, not based on self-view or anything that's going to produce more stress or more dukkha in our lives. Similarly, samma vayama, right effort, there has to be a way that effort can be made without it being stressful or burdensome. Because otherwise you couldn't have samma vayama as part of the Eightfold Path. It's got to be, there's got to be a way that we can work and make effort and go places, do things that is completely stress-free. Otherwise you couldn't have samma vayama. So our ordinary worldly way of thinking is, oh, thank goodness it's the weekend. Don't have to work. Or even in a meditation, I like to point out, oh, thank goodness that's over. So, I'm not reading anybody's mind. I always say that. So, how did he know? I say it's statistics, not psychic power. So it's just how we are as human. Even the meditation becomes this thing I have to do, or I'm supposed to be doing, and thank goodness that's over. And the most peaceful moment is where I don't have to I don't have to be doing anything. So letting go of I and doing and thingness is more the point. So if with the use of the practice, there can be a development of that sense of setting a direction, making effort, free of self-view, then it's not stressful or burdensome to be taking action or to be making choices, giving a direction to our life, and so that it's difficult to get a feeling for how that works. But I would say with meditation practice and wise reflection, that's something we can get a feel for. I would say we know how to follow a path without it being stressful. Like going for a walk in the park. You can see where the path is, and you're just going for a walk. You're not trying to get somewhere, you're just walking. But you've got a direction, and you're making effort. So we know how to have a direction and make effort in a relaxed way. Or if you're driving, that you've got the white lines either side of you, you don't have to keep thinking about staying between the white lines. It's not stressful, it's just letting you know how to drive, and along you go, and then the lines guide you in a very natural, easy, matter-of-fact way. It's not burdensome or even that limiting, because the setting of the direction and maintaining the direction happens quite comfortably. So we do know how to do that, but we don't really know how to do that with our own minds. Walking in the park or commuting to work in our car, that's familiar territory. But having that same kind of natural setting of a direction and making effort in terms of mind training is more challenging for us. We tend to take it very personally, like, I've got to get rid of this, I've got to become that, I should be doing this. The Ajahn said such and such, so I should be doing that, and I shouldn't be doing this. So transferring that natural ability to make effort and set a direction and follow that with mind training, that's I would say is one of the big challenges that we have. So please, any other questions? Yeah.
You were talking about don't cling to anything. There's a nice
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that one, now if one is getting attached to the Dhamma practice, so that it's hard to not cling to it. It's something very important to you, and then how do you work around it?
Well, that kind of clinging is called Dhammaraga, Dhammanandya and Dhammaraga. So in some of the suttas, the Buddha talks about that someone gets overexcited about the Dhamma, Dhammanandya, joyfulness, getting too excited about the Dhamma, then I wouldn't say it's that much of a problem. He said they might only reach the level of anagami. So if that's the only obstructions that are getting in the way, then you have to settle for anagami-ship rather than arahant-ship. So it's not that much of a problem, I would suggest. So it's a problem, but it's not. It could have worse problems. But it is in that those teachings the Buddha is pointing out that is an obstacle. If you are that kind of over enthusiasm, Dhammaraga, passion for the Dhamma, or Dhammanandya, joy, the kind of enthusiasm or joyfulness in the Dhamma. But I would say one of the most helpful approaches in that respect is developing mindfulness of the body, because when there is that kind of excitement or enthusiasm, then there's a sort of resonance in the body. Your body gets more tense and more agitated, and so to help develop a bit more of a calm and less excited attitude, then to develop mindfulness of the body, to relax the body. And it's very hard for the mind to stay excited if the body is very relaxed, just as it's very hard for the mind to stay anxious or afraid if the body is very relaxed. So that kind of enthusiasm might be there, but if you bring attention into the body, do what you can to relax the body. Also, just focusing on the out-breath, which is the natural way of relaxing, releasing tension and so on, then that can help to a certain degree. That would be my advice anyway. You had your hand up as well.
John, I don't know how to word it, but I know there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is what I get from practical things I gather and reading. How do I actually practically develop this wisdom, which is the quality that I want? Because it's such a grey area for me personally. I want to get it. I know that's an
Yes. Well, there's a few lines in one of T.S. Eliot's poems. He says, I think it's The Hollow Men. Where is the wisdom that is lost in knowledge? Where is the knowledge that is lost in information? So I think it's very helpful, sort of three-layer cake. So information is the actual sort of pieces of fact, and the mechanics of how the world works, whether it's the mental world, physical world, social world, whatever. So the information is the sort of ground level. Then knowledge, I would say, is a comprehension of how those pieces of information fit together. Some of the patterns of the natural world and of the social landscape and so on and so forth. So knowledge is in the ordinary usage of the word is knowing about things, and knowing how things fit together and work together. So our educational systems are mostly geared towards the development of knowledge, gathering the information, putting it together, and making good use of it, and recognizing patterns in the things that are known that are then beneficial, whether it's even in Dhamma, whether it's in Dhamma, whether it's in biology, whether it's in mathematics, whether it's in English literature, whatever it might be, all those different domains. So wisdom is non-conceptual and non-verbal. It's the quality within the Buddhist usage of the term. So panya is mostly, almost exclusively, panya is referring to a non-conceptual, non-verbal awareness of things. So satipanya in particular, so mindfulness and wisdom. So sometimes the word panya means intelligence and the capacity to think. So it is a bit more tied to conceptual knowledge and thinking and so on. How we would think of as the meaning of the word intelligence. But mostly, I would say, when we're talking about wisdom in our teachings and practice and the development of wisdom, it's very close to the quality of awareness itself, or awakened awareness, which is a non-conceptual, non-verbal quality. And so that that quality of wisdom is, say, its essence is that awake, aware quality, and then beyond the information that's there, and beyond even the conceptual understanding, it's the aspect of mind that knows in this moment this is a pattern of experience put together through seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and that and wisdom in its most profound or complete sense, it's knowing that all sankharas are empty, all sankharas are anicca, dukkha, and everything is anicca, dukkha, anatta, and so that's like an ongoing appreciation. If wisdom is firmly established, if the heart is appreciating each moment with mindfulness and wisdom, then it will be seeing and knowing everything within the framework of anicca, dukkha, anatta, and that is as the recognition that this is the mind's representation of the world. It's not the world. It's my mind's version of the world. So that in essence, wisdom, from the Buddhist perspective, or mindfulness and wisdom, satipanya, it's more to do with a way of seeing and knowing in a completely unobstructed fashion. So it is in itself non-conceptual, non-verbal. It's knowing the conceptual and the verbal and the experiential, the patterns of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, and emotion and memory and imagination and so on. It's the quality that knows those and knows that these are all fabricated and in a state of flux. Yeah? But it's not identifying with any of those perceptions, but even the perceptions of the body or the people around you and your family and so on, that that quality of wisdom is seeing everything in a true context, seeing it in its true light.
Is that the anicca reflection?
Well, anicca, the reflection on anicca is a way of helping that wisdom to be established, so that we assume nicca and atta. Yeah, it's permanent, and it's me that is experiencing this world, which is real and solid and dependable. And so the reflections on anicca, dukkha, and anatta is because we keep seeing things in terms of nicca, sukha, and atta. So it's like, wait a minute, no, it's not nicca, sukha, and atta. It's anicca, dukkha, and anatta. So it's like those reflections are counteracting our ignorant worldview. Oh, it's much more comprehensive than that. It's like, as I was saying to this gentleman before everybody else arrived, there's no thing to be anicca. So anicca is a convenient fiction, because for something to be impermanent, then there's got to be a thing there. But essentially, there aren't really any things. There is a flow of perception and experience that's in a constant state of change, of flux, and some things move slowly, like building, like human body, and so we can say this is a building, this is a person, but it is in a state of change. Or I was giving the example of like a proton in the physical world. You can say, well, that's really stable. Protons last a long time, but they're impermanent. You know, if you compare them to a human lifespan, they last a long time, but in cosmological terms, you know, a proton can come into being and can dissolve, and it is still a limited period of time. It might be billions of years, human years, but it still arises and passes away. So that in a way, the reflection on anicca is in respect of the ignorant view that anything could be nicca. Just like saying things are not self is counteracting the ignorant view that there's any qualities that could be a self or belong to a self. So that it's changing the view, and so the wisdom mind, when wisdom is properly established, then there's the recognition that there isn't anything that could be nicca, and there isn't anything that could be owned. And no being that could own it, and that's an ongoing appreciation. That's the framework. There isn't anybody that can do any owning, and no thing that can be owned. Oh, that's very threatening to our ego. But my stuff, my body, my family, my job, yeah, my career, my publications. Yeah. But they never really were ours in the first place. So I like the term convenient fiction. So like saying this is my body, or this is Dhammagiri Forest Hermitage, it's a convenient fiction. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong or bad about it, it's just, 20 years ago this wasn't Dhammagiri Forest Hermitage.
Let's take a short break to enjoy a melodious, blissful song. This is a very meaningful and devotional hymn. The Reason Why, a sing-along rendition, a powerful presentation of the Buddhist hymn by PowerPoint brother O Tek Bin. Our next segment features Venerable Ajahn Brahmali as he touches a rare topic, what is and isn't a jhana. The Venerable takes us deep into the teaching of the Buddha as the Venerable Ajahn Brahmali talks about jhana levels, Let's enjoy the Master's talk mindfully.
Okay, everyone. So once again, welcome. And the topics for tonight's talk is what is a jhana and what it is not, something like that. What it is and what it isn't. So does everyone here heard about the word jhana before? No? Okay, one who hasn't heard about it. Okay, you've heard it. Okay. So the idea, just to kind of give you a very, very brief introduction to the word jhana basically means like deep meditation. Yeah, so a jhana is like a state when you become incredibly peaceful, very joyful, very blissful, a very deep state of meditation. That's essentially what it is about. And it's a very fundamental part of the Buddhist path. The Buddha talked about an eightfold path, and so this is one of the factors of the eightfold path. And this is why it is important to know what the jhana is and what is not, because if you don't know what it is, you probably can't fulfill the eightfold path. That means that there's no way you're going to be able to go all the way to the end of what the Buddha taught, which is called awakening, bodhi, in the Buddhist suttas, the Buddhist discourses. And so to be able to go all the way to awakening, all the way to the end of the path, we need to understand the steps. And if you don't understand the steps, well, you have a problem. And that's kind of the idea here. That makes sense? It's kind of a very brief introduction to jhana. The rest of the talk is also going to be part of this. It's going to be more of the same, and it's going to be time to ask questions afterwards. Jhana, the word jhana also means, it's a noun, which means meditation. The verb of jhana is jayati, and that means more meditation in general, the idea of, sitting down, watching your breath, and these kind of things. And so that's kind of the background. And you may wonder, why should we talk about what jhana is and what it is not? I don't know if some of you may have seen this if you go on the internet. There's very often all these discussions about jhanas. Some people say it means this, other people say it means that. Some people say it means something in between, and some people are kind of in a completely different ballpark, in a different reality. And so what actually is it? That's the question. So, and this is kind of so what we're going to talk about precisely because there is so much discussion. Many of these discussions are very bad ideas, because very often when you discuss things, you end up with heated arguments and all of these kind of things. And of course, if you end up with heated arguments and you're kind of ready to punch each other on the nose, sometimes that's what it feels like when you go online. Of course, that is very counter to the idea of jhana. There's no way you're going to get a jhana if that is what you do online. And so in one sense, it's kind of very counterproductive to have these discussions. But on the other hand, as I just mentioned, it is also very important to understand it. If you don't understand it, there's no way that you're going to understand the path that the Buddha taught. And for that reason, it actually matters, and it actually is quite significant. And that's the reason why we are talking about it today. I suppose, is that the reason? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, so we're here to discuss it. And I think a good place to start is that even though these jhanas are very significant, it is important to understand them in the right way. It is also important not to hold on to these things too much. Sometimes people say, they go on a retreat and they say, I've come to get a jhana. That's what they say, I've come to get a jhana. And I say, or Ajahn Brahm says, or someone says, but you don't know if you're going to get a jhana. If you're coming to get a jhana, you may have a problem. You have all of these aspirations, all these desires, you want to go somewhere, you may not be able to get it. What's going to happen then? And you can see that there's a problem right there. If you aspire for something here, if you have too much desire to go somewhere, that desire becomes a hindrance in actually getting to where you want to be, because desires tend to take us into the future. It takes us into, a very restless mind very often, etc., etc. And so it blocks our ability to achieve these kind of states of meditation. And so for that reason, it can be kind of counterproductive if we give rise to, if we think about these things in the wrong way, and we aspire to these things in this way. So we have to be very careful how we do this. And so the way to actually achieve these states is to put into place all the causes. The causes, in other words, the other factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. Be kind, don't argue about jhana on the internet. This is one of the causes of achieving it. And as you do that, as you put in place the causes for these things, then eventually they will happen as a consequence. Make sense? Yeah, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? So put in place the idea here, put in place the causes. Don't worry about the results. Let the results happen when they will happen. Don't force yourself. And this is kind of very different from the way the world works. Yeah, if you have a job you have to do or something that you have to succeed in, whatever it is, you kind of put forth a bit of willpower. Yeah, okay, I've got to write this report. I don't really want to write it, but I've got to write it. Okay, so willpower is the only way here. On the Buddhist path is the opposite of willpower. Yeah, it's letting go of willpower, not kind of looking to the future, not trying to achieve things, but being content with what happens. Just putting in the causes, being kind, being compassionate, being mindful in the present moment. Having right view. Yeah, having right view is fundamental to the idea of the Buddhist path. Really, really fundamental. That's why it is the first factor of the Noble Eightfold Path. Yeah, are you all reasonably familiar with the Buddhist teachings, or? Little bit, yeah. Noble Eightfold Path makes sense to everyone, yeah. Not everyone. Yeah, okay. You haven't heard about the Noble Eightfold Path, right? Okay, so this is your chance to learn. Yeah, you're going to learn the most tonight. The one who knows the least is going to learn the most. That's kind of the great thing, yeah. So that's good. So welcome. So Noble Eightfold Path begins with right view, and that is why it is so fundamental. And all the factors of the Noble Eightfold Path are supported by that right view. Yeah. So if you develop the right view, if you understand the world more aligned with the way the Buddha talked about the world, which is supposed to be the way the world is, yeah, then of course it's going to increase your ability to do everything else on that Noble Eightfold Path. So we put the cause into place. And when you put the cause into place, then the results will happen, the meditation will happen, and eventually the jhanas will happen. And eventually, awakening will happen. Are you ready for awakening? Yes? Okay. You're very brave, right? Because what is awakening? We don't know what it is. It's like, wow, awakening. It's like something like a pie in the sky, something really extraordinary here. But of course it is worthwhile. Yeah, according to the Buddhist teaching, awakening is the highest happiness. And if that is true, obviously it is worthwhile. So putting in place the causes. So how do we do that? And basically you put all the causes into place and then you don't do anything here. And this is kind of the hard part in Buddhism. What does it mean not to do anything here? And to illustrate this, I'm going to tell you a story from the life of the Buddha himself. Have you read the life of the Buddha, the story of the background, how the Buddha became awakened and all of these kind of things? You know the story, yeah? And that story occurs in a number of different places. There's a story that occurs in later texts, which is very elaborated kind of story, a lot of legendary things and mythology, etc., etc. But if you go to the actual word of the Buddha, what we call the suttas, the discourses of the Buddha talks about his own life before his awakening. Yeah, he tells basically us what he did, and then obviously meaning to say, this is what I did to reach awakening. You should be doing the same thing. Yeah, the Buddha is a human being. We are human beings. The path to awakening is the same for all of us. And so the Buddha tells us the story of his own life, like an autobiography, if you like. You should be doing the same thing. And so this story, part of the story is the Buddha going to these two teachers, yeah, and they teach very profound meditation. They call Alara Kalama and Udakramaputra, and these are kind of some of the foremost meditation teachers at that time. Yes? Yes. Thank you for supporting me here. So some of the foremost meditation teachers in India at that time, they were basically Brahmanical. Brahmanism is the precursor to modern-day Hinduism. And so very, very, very profound meditation. We're talking about meditation where the world kind of completely disappears. The five senses are no more. The mind is completely unified. It's a kind of meditation when you get there, you think you have acquired the meaning of life, unity with God. You don't want to do anything more. You just want to sit down, chill, and stay in that meditation for the rest of your life. That's really all you want to do when you get to these kind of things. And so the Buddha got to these meditations under these two teachers. And then he kind of said, no, this doesn't really work. Yeah, the whole rest of the world thought it works, but the Buddha did not. The Buddha is always this kind of rebel. Yeah, the Buddha is the black sheep. Is that true? The Buddha is a black sheep? It's interesting, yeah? This is not how usually Buddhism is taught, but I said the Buddha is a bit like the black sheep, because if you are the white sheep, yeah, you follow everyone else. When everyone else goes over the cliff, so do you. But the black sheep turns around just in time, yeah, and avoids the cliff. And so the Buddha avoids the cliff. And that is what awakening is about, avoiding the cliff. Yeah, you're ending kind of suffering. And so to do that, you have to think differently from everyone else. So where everyone else finds the absolute meaning in life, the Buddha says, no, this just leads to more rebirth. It doesn't actually end the problem that I'm trying to end, which is the ending of suffering, which also means the ending of rebirth in Buddhism. And so the Buddha turns away from that. And then after turning away from that, he practices these ascetic practices, yeah, often called self-mortification, the Atthakalamatthanu yoga in the suttas. That's Pali. Anyone knows Pali? A little bit of Pali? Yeah. No? Yeah? Okay, Venerable here knows Pali. Okay, good. Yeah. Excellent. So Pali is the language of the early suttas, quite closely related to Sanskrit. And it's kind of useful for a monastic to know a little bit of Pali. So, and it gives you, one of the reasons I say Pali words, it gives me more authority. It sounds cool, right? If I say Pali words, I say, wow, you think, and I think, okay, so authority is kind of made. So this is called Atthakalamatthanu yoga. The idea of self-mortification, in other words, like a tormenting of the body. The idea is to release kind of the soul or the self or the mind by tormenting the physical body. That's kind of the idea behind that. And so then he does that for a while, and then after doing that for a while, all the way to almost dying. Yeah, he's on the verge of dying, because when you do this practice all the way, you become so thin, and you lose kind of everything, and eventually you die. It's like, fasting over very, very long periods of time. And so then he thinks to himself, well, I've tried these various ways. I've been living the household life, been indulging myself. He had a very kind of plush upbringing, very nice upbringing. And then he kind of did the meditation practices all the way to the limit, as they were known in those days. Then he does the self-mortification all the way to the limit. He has tried everything in the world. None of these things in the world work. And so then he asks himself, what then could be the path to awakening? At this point, he has left behind everything. And this is the idea of, again, having to be a black sheep. You have to really go your own way as a Buddha to be able to find the solution to the problems of life, because obviously no one else has found them. And so then he thinks back and he says, well, actually, I remember as a child, I was sitting under a rose apple tree, the Jambudipa. And as I was sitting under this tree, he was just a child. I don't know how old he was. I think 12 years old, according to the commentaries, but he was a child. His father was doing some work in the field or something, and he was just waiting for his dad. And sitting in the shade of this tree. And as he was sitting in the shade of the tree, he went into a jhana. We're talking about jhanas, right? So he went into a jhana state. And now he recalls, now this is many, many years later, he's very close to kind of reaching his own awakening. This is maybe 15 years later or whatever. He recalls that event. And then he thinks to himself, that is the path to awakening, that jhana state. And then based on that, later on, he then reaches awakening. So why am I telling you all this? And the reason is, there's two reasons why I'm telling you all this. The first reason, and this is kind of, I think, really interesting here. The first reason is that he was a child. He was sitting under a tree. He was just waiting for his father. And you can imagine as a child, you're just sitting there, the sky is blue and the sun is shining. You're sitting in the shade, really relaxed, doing nothing, being patient. You know what children are like, They're kind of, they're playful and they kind of just, they have the ability to relax, Adults, we can't relax anymore, but children, they can relax. They're sitting there patiently, and he goes into a jhana. No doctrine, no idea of any religion, no kind of practice before, nothing. And still, you enter a jhana. Isn't that kind of extraordinary? To me, that is really interesting, because it means that what we have to do to enter a jhana is nothing really. All you have to do is to be patient like that small child, like supremely patient, fully patient, having no idea where you're going, no desire, no aspiration, no kind of planning to go to any particular place, but just chillaxing completely. And through that complete relaxation, these jhanas happen. That is how you attain a jhana state. Isn't that interesting? I find it really, really interesting. And it's not just that, and this is kind of the thing. If you ever talk to someone who is a really master of these kind of states, they would say very similar kind of things. Many years ago, we had a group of people. I live in Perth, in Australia. Yeah, I don't know if you said that, Venerable, but that's where I live anyway, whether you said it or not. So, so I live in Perth, in Australia, and with my teacher is Ajahn Brahm. Everyone knows Ajahn Brahm. Yeah, everyone? No? Don't know Ajahn Brahm? Okay, good. So that, again, you're going to learn something. Ajahn Brahm is my teacher. Ajahn Brahm is a very famous monk, yeah, these days. And he's many people would regard him as a meditation master, yeah, very deep meditation, all these kind of things. And he was a disciple of a very famous monk in Thailand called Ajahn Chah. Ajahn Chah was maybe the most famous meditation master in Thailand in the 20th century. So it's like a nice lineage. And that lineage goes all the way back to the Buddha originally. Back to the Buddha over here. And so we have this large support base in Perth. Yeah, this is Australia, very close to Asia, very large Asian migration into Australia. Many of them are Buddhists. And so we have this beautiful community of people from the various countries in Asia, from Thailand, Sri Lanka, Burma, Laos, Vietnam, basically everywhere. And of course, then also the kind of more traditional Anglo-Saxon Australians as well. Yeah, everyone comes to our monastery. And sometimes then we go overseas. And this one monk who also was a disciple of Ajahn Chah, Ajahn Brahm's teacher, he's actually Ajahn Chah's nephew called Ajahn Ganha. He came to stay with us for a while, and people loved him. Yeah, it's just a beautiful monk, so much loving kindness, so much kindness, very peaceful presence and all of these kind of things. And so after he had left, people were saying, oh, we should go and visit Ajahn Ganha. Yeah, it was so nice to be with him. And we can ask him some questions about meditation practice. And so we went, all of these people, they went from Perth all the way to Thailand. I think Ajahn Brahm also was with them. Yeah, and they went to Ajahn Ganha. And they said, we come all the way from Perth to ask about meditation. Please tell us about meditation practice. And so Ajahn Ganha says, breathe in, sabai. Breathe out, sabai. And that was it. But we come all the way from Perth. That's all we're going to say. We want to hear more. But breathe in, sabai. Sabai in Pali, in Thai, means something like relax, be at ease, be comfortable. Yeah? Is that right, Venerable? Sabai. Yeah? Be happy, be content. Yeah, exactly. Like a ballpark, you're right. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, so it means this idea, just be content and happy and comfortable and at ease. Yeah? Breathe in, be at ease. Breathe out, be at ease. That's all you have to do. Yeah, and then they wanted to hear more, but he wasn't going to say anymore. That was the whole teaching that he had. Yeah, that was it. They come all the way from Perth to hear 6 words, and I had to go back to Perth again. That's kind of nice, isn't it? There's something about these great meditation masters that make things very, very simple usually. Very simple teachings, yeah? And don't make things complicated at all. And this is so beautiful about it, yeah? But you have to take that teaching really to heart and do it fully. You really have to be content. You really have to be relaxed. You really have to be at ease. Then it works. Just like the Buddha under the rose apple tree, yeah? Just chilling, doing nothing at all. This is the idea. So isn't that kind of nice? Yeah, this is what the Buddhist path is about. Yeah, relaxing. There's no kind of sitting there and stressing, oh, I've got to watch the breath. Yeah, wow, so much dukkha to watch the breath. If I keep on watching the breath, it will be all right eventually. But actually right now, it's really uncomfortable. Can't stand it, but I'll keep on carrying on anyway. Yeah. That is the wrong way. Yeah, it doesn't work. And then you have a big problem because of that. And so this is the one thing that really stands out to me. Sometimes you read the suttas and things kind of suddenly become clear. Wait a minute, there's something really important about this. The child sitting there doing nothing, that is how you attain jhana. Yeah, that tells a lot. It says a lot about how these things actually happen. But there's one other thing to be learned from this, which I find really also very, very fascinating. And that other thing which is happening there is that the story I was just telling was the idea of the Buddha to be coming under these 2 teachers, staying with them, and then taking those teachings all the way to the most profound level, very, very deep meditations. But then, when he was recalling later on, he didn't recall those teachings. He recalled the earlier teaching when he was a child. So why is that? Why didn't he recall the teachings under these very profound teachers? Why did he have to go much further back in time to recall the time when he was a child? It is one of those conundrums that is talked about in Buddhist circles. Have you talked about that before? Because you said you look like you had kind of knowledge about the... I met you on the street, by the way. That's right. Yeah, that was really cool. It was very kind of you. You were going to take me here. Thank you very much. That was very...
I actually ended up getting lost myself. So
getting lost yourself. So that was a bit of an overpromise on your part. Yeah, say I'm going to take you to Centric. Don't trust everything you hear. In other words, but I appreciate the kindness, though. It was very good of you. And so, why is that the case? Yeah. And the answer is, and there's a different answer, but I think one of the most profound answers to this question is that when the Buddha learned meditation under those two existing masters, that meditation came with a package of doctrines. And those doctrines, that doctrinal package that it came with is the doctrine of the ancient Brahmins. And that is about the permanent self. It's about being reborn or kind of attaining a realm where you kind of are eternal, you cannot carry on forever after. And so it came with this doctrine that was basically wrong. A doctrine that didn't fit with the way the Buddha was starting to see the world. And so when he looked back to that, all he could see was that wrong view, the wrong idea. And that's why he couldn't relate the meditation, the good meditation, as a path, but instead related it to the wrong view. And so the wrong view becomes a blockage for being able to see that profound meditation for what it actually is, part of the path. And this, what is so important about this, is that it shows us the danger of wrong view in Buddhism, how it blocks your ability to make progress in meditation. And eventually even the Buddha himself was not able to make use of those meditations because of the wrong view that was conjoined with those meditations. And that's why he had to go back to his childhood, when he was free of views. No views, no doctrine, no nothing, just pure meditation experience, nothing else. Isn't that kind of fascinating? It says something about the danger of looking at the world in the wrong way. And so what that means, in a way, what this kind of comes down to, is that when we talk about meditation, deep meditation, view, the way we think about the world, in other words, insight and all of these kind of things, always comes with meditation. Meditation and view, these two sides of one coin, if you like, always have to kind of be present for the meditation to work. And one way of thinking about that, is the two qualities we often talk about in meditation, samatha and vipassana. Has everyone heard about samatha and vipassana? Have you heard about it? No? Okay, good. Okay, so it's good because then I have an excuse to talking about it, right? So thank you for being here. Otherwise, I have a problem right now. If you said yes or no, what am I going to say here? Actually, I would have no problem saying anything. But anyway, just kind of making it up because it sounds nice. So thank you for not knowing anyway. And I think the fellow with the red shirt also doesn't know, right? So, okay, good. So we have another reason there. So samatha and vipassana. So samatha, these are two sides of meditation practice. Samatha means calm or tranquility. This is the calming idea of meditation, which is a very important part of what meditation is about. Jhanas ultimately lead to some of the deepest calm you can have. And vipassana, often translated as insight, but I don't think that is satisfactory translation here. Vipassana means more something like clear seeing here. Yes, in other words, and I think the evidence from the suttas, from the word of the Buddha, is actually quite strong in that direction. And just to kind of boost my credentials a little bit, I wrote to Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi. You know Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi? So I write to him occasionally because I know him, met him a few times. I wrote to him and said, actually, you should change your translation of Vipassana to clear seeing. Forget about this insight stuff. I don't think it's right. So I gave my argument. And then he wrote back to me and he said, actually, I agree with you. I thought, wow, he agrees with me. That's really nice. When a senior monk agrees, well, that's always kind of very, very handy. You know what I mean? So, and so he agreed with me. But then he said that the word insight is so established as a translation of Vipassana, we can't really change it now. So I thought, okay, that's a bit of a kind of a, that's too bad. But anyway, at least he agreed with me on this idea, which I thought was very interesting. And so there's these two sides of meditation, clear seeing and calm. Yeah, and they always come together. These are not separate. That's why I said they're two sides of the same coin. Yeah, if you have the heads, you also have tails. You can't have heads without tails. And so two sides of the same coin. And so what that means is that when we meditate, we meditate always with these two things building each other up. And so when you become more peaceful, and I don't know if you became peaceful in this very short meditation we had before, maybe you became a little bit more peaceful. Even a tiny smidgen is good, right? So if you have a tiny smidgen of more peace, that's already wonderful. And what you will see is that when the mind is more peaceful, you tend to see more clearly. The mind has more power to it. There is less of the problems in the mind that block us from seeing clearly. And so clear seeing always comes with calm. The deeper the calm is, the more clearly you will be seeing. And one of the ways of establishing that and making much of that is when you come to the end of your meditation, just like we did before, is to ask yourself what happened during the meditation. How did it work? How did I become more peaceful? And one of the things you will notice is that many things have been abandoned in the meditation. I don't think so much. The body is kind of disappearing a little bit. And then you start to understand the things that cause trouble for you. The things that are dukkha. Dukkha is the Pali word for suffering or for trouble or pain or whatever. All of those things are fading away. And this is one reason why I'm feeling more happy. So you start to see the connection between seeing clearly and the calm of the mind. They're very closely connected. The deeper the calm, the more clearly you will see. But it also goes the other way around. It goes the other way around. The more clearly you see, the more calm you will be. Why is that? Because when you see clearly, it means that you understand where suffering is, you understand where happiness is, and when you understand where suffering is, it is easier to abandon those things that actually are problematic. If you understand that the body is a problem, it's easy to abandon the body during meditation. It kind of makes sense, because you know the issue, you know what is at stake. And so it is always, these two things always go together. The more peaceful you are, the more insight you have, or the more clear seeing you have. The more clear seeing you have, the more peaceful you are. And the main reason why these things always must go together is because they have the same source. The source for being peaceful is an abandoning of the defilements of the mind. The less defilements you have in the mind. This is why we start with living a virtuous and kind lifestyle, because this abandons some of the defilements. It is also why the 5 hindrances, which is one of the ways of looking at the mental problems, why the abandoning of these things is so important. The more calm you have, the less of these defilements there are. Why? Because calm is the opposite. Defilements is like, ill will and desire. Ill will and desire takes you into the future. It takes you into the past. The less you have of these things, the more peaceful you're going to be, the more you're going to be in the present. And so it kind of is natural to see that less defilements means more peace. But less defilements also means more clear seeing. Because defilements of the mind, desires, they bias, they distort our vision of the world. If you desire something, you have a vested interest in the thing that you desire. If you have ill will towards somebody, you have a kind of anti-vested interest in that person, a rejection of that person. It biases your attitude towards that person. And because these are biases, the less you have of these defilements, the more clear seeing you have. And so clear seeing, vipassana, and samatha calm come from the same source, and that source is the abandoning of the hindrances, the abandoning of the defilements of the mind. Does that make sense? Am I making any sense here? It makes sense to me, but I don't know if I'm able to kind of, you always think it makes sense when you say it, but then people say, what is he talking about? And that's very, very fascinating, because once you understand that these two sides of meditation have the same source, it means that the path to achieving them, they must always come together, because otherwise that's kind of what it means to have the same source. There can be a little bit different kind of weight on the two things, but essentially they build up together. And the reason I'm talking about all of this is because what this shows you, it shows you one of the reasons why the jhanas, these very deep states of meditation, are so incredibly important. Yeah, because if the deeper the calm, the deeper the insight, it means that if you go all the way to very, very deep meditation, like the samadhi, like the jhanas, you're also going to have the deepest possible insight. Yeah? Makes sense, yeah? Because if the calm is very deep, the clear seeing is going to be very deep. And that is kind of the outcome of this. And so, what does that mean? And one of the things that it means, and this may come as a surprise to you perhaps, I don't know, but one of the things this means is that the way the jhanas are described in the suttas, one of the descriptions is alang arya nanadasana visesa. Okay, I'll translate for you. So this means the distinction in knowledge and vision worthy of the noble ones. Yeah, distinction in knowledge and vision. Knowledge and vision worthy of the noble ones. Knowledge and vision, that is usually insight. That is usually about clear seeing, it's usually about wisdom. But here the jhanas actually have the same name as the higher stages of insight on the path. They are distinctions in knowledge and vision. Isn't that kind of fascinating? What that means, it comes back to what I was just saying now, that samatha and vipassana, yeah, the idea of calm and insight always must go together. And the deeper calm you have, the more profound your meditation is, the deeper is going to be your insight, the deeper is going to be your vision of reality. This is why these things are so incredibly fundamentally important. And this is why it matters so enormously that we get it right. I should have said at the very beginning, I forgot to say this at the very beginning, coming back to the beginning again now. Sorry about that, just to be very brief. If we get the idea of the jhanas wrong, if we don't understand them in the right way, what that means is that we block our access to enlightenment, yeah, to the very end of the path, because we block our access to this knowledge and vision that arises out of these very deep states of meditation. So if we misunderstand these things, what they actually are, we have a very serious problem in terms of actually accessing that awakening experience that the Buddha himself was able to access when, I was going to say during the night of his awakening. That's just another myth. It's not actually a night, it's more like an extended period. But, as part of his awakening experience. And so this is the idea of jhanas from the point of view of samatha and vipassana. I'm a bit worried about the time, because time goes so fast. I don't know why it is. Go slow time, please. Doesn't usually listen to me, Anyway, see what happens. There is another angle of thinking about the idea of samatha, and this angle is more the progress of meditation on the path. I like to call this the psychological viewpoint of meditation. In other words, an internal first-person viewpoint of meditation. Yeah. What does the meditation actually feel like? How do we experience meditation? Yeah, and this is described in very many places in the suttas. One of the descriptions is called the dependent liberation sequence, which shows how liberation happens one factor at a time, yeah, starting from ordinary virtue all the way to awakening. There's a very beautiful sequence that talks about all the mental qualities rising stage by stage. A very important sequence. It happens many, many places in the suttas. You have the sequence called the 7 factors of awakening. This is a fundamental set of qualities found in the suttas. Yeah, it's a part of what is called the 37 aids to awakening, which the Buddha called "This is my teaching." Yeah, so these are part of that. It is also found in the Anapanasati Sutta, the Sutta on mindfulness of breathing. It is found in the 6 recollections. Yeah, these are the kind of basic recollections to use to actually advance your meditation, to find joy in all of these kind of things. So it's found everywhere in the suttas, this particular sequence. And something that's found everywhere, you can take it to be of fundamental importance, yeah, on the path. And so what does this say? Yeah, and what it says is the following. In the dependent liberation sequence, it starts off with sila. Sila is virtue or kindness or morality. From that virtue, you have non-regret. Yeah, this is the foundation. From non-regret, you get joy. Joy here is pamoja. Yeah, pamoja. From the pamoja, already you have joy. Yeah, from the pamoja comes piti. Piti is like rapture, is a more kind of energetic kind of joy. Yeah, kind of waves of joy going through the body. From that rapture, you get tranquility, called passaddhi in the Pali language. From that tranquility, you get sukha. Sukha can be translated as bliss, yeah? A profound, very satisfying state of tremendous happiness and joy, whereby you're starting to feel that you're touching something very, very profound and beautiful. From that happiness comes samadhi. And samadhi here is exactly what we're talking about before, the 4 jhanas. That is the samadhi we're talking about. Yeah? So it comes from that joy. And then from that samadhi comes yata bhuta nanadasana, which means seeing things in accordance with reality. Yeah? Yata bhuta nyanadasana. Nanadasana, exactly the same word I was saying before. Alang arya nanadasana visesa. Yata bhuta nyanadasana. Same word, knowledge and vision, yeah, according to reality or whatever. And if you look at that sequence, it is very interesting. It is very interesting because it is, first of all, very so positive. You have all of these words for joy and happiness. You have joy, you have rapture, you have tranquility, you have bliss. Yeah, one thing after the other. And I always say that the reason why not everyone in the world is a Buddhist. I always wonder, why isn't everyone a Buddhist? Isn't that kind of weird? Here you are, joy, rapture, tranquility, bliss, samadhi. Everyone should be a Buddhist, for goodness sake. That's what I reckon. I don't kind of understand why everyone isn't a Buddhist. And when you read this kind of suttas, I think it's a marketing problem. That's what I think it is. Yeah. This is marketing. This sutta is really good marketing, actually. There's bliss and all these kind of things. So we should talk more about bliss and happiness, not so much about dukkha. That's what I reckon. Too much dukkha talk in the world there. Anyway, so for me, this is really, really attractive. When I read this kind of, I think, wow, this is so uplifting here. Why haven't I heard more about this? Yeah, when I kind of, travel around and meet teachers, my teacher, Ajahn Brahm, actually happens to talk about happiness all the time. And so I think that is the right way to do things. Of course, sometimes you have to talk about dukkha, but happiness is really undervalued as a teaching tool, teaching approach, or whatever, on the Buddhist path. Now, so what is so fascinating about this is that you will notice all of these states of happiness before you get to samadhi. Yeah? So in other words, there is joy, then there is rapture, then there is a profound sense of tranquility, then there is bliss, then you get to samadhi, right? All of these things. And what that means is that when you start experiencing things, the samadhi, the jhana, is a very, very profound state. You have to go through all of these other kinds of happiness before you get to the jhanas. And this has implications for our understanding, our interpretation of these things. I'm supposed to talk about what jhana is and what isn't. I haven't really talked so much about that yet, but now it's coming here. Yeah, now it's happening here. So this has implications for how we understand the idea of jhana. One way that people often, and Venerable Chanda just mentioned it to me today, and I thought I should talk about that. She invited me, so I have to say, what she suggests. Otherwise, I'm not kind of fulfilling my duties. And so she said that one of the problems often in meditation circles is that the way people decide whether they have achieved a jhana or not is that they count the factors that are included in a jhana. And in the suttas, very occasionally talk about what is called the jhana factors. In other words, the elements that make up a jhana experience. And those are 5 kind of elements: vitakka, vichara, piti, sukha, and ekaggata. Vitakka, vichara means, it can mean many different things. It basically means just the mind doing things. It can mean anything. It's very, very broad. It can mean thinking. It can also just mean the movement of the mind. Piti, sukha means rapture and bliss, as I was just talking about before. And ekaggata means like one-pointedness of mind. And that can also be very broad, depending on the context. And so, yeah, if you count those factors, what that means is if you meditate and you experience a little bit of joy and happiness, arguably you have all of those factors. And then people say, must be the first jhana. I say, wait a minute, it's not as simple as that, yeah? Because there's a long sequence of joy and happiness before you get to the jhana. So you have to be very careful. It is not any happiness that is jhana. It is a particular quality of happiness, a profound state of happiness that is the jhanas. And the way these are described in the suttas, they have a very kind of particular kind of description. And they are called the stillness of the mind born of the samadhija piti sukha, the stillness born, the viveka piti sukha, the happiness and joy born of seclusion, that is the first jhana. Yeah, so it's born of seclusion, and that seclusion in the suttas means the seclusion from the five senses and also the seclusion from the five hindrances. So it's a very, very particular kind of happiness, and this is then very important for understanding what these jhanas are. Yeah, this is kind of the beginning point when you start to realize, actually, we have to be very careful. If we don't get this right, we are going to block the access to awakening in the Dhamma, and so these things really matter here. And so, take.
That's all for today. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact us at info@buddhadharmatv.com. We work hard to share the noble, peaceful, and sublime teachings of the Buddha with you, and helping you pursue the spiritual path under his wisdom. Please encourage and support those interested in the rational and enlightened teachings of the Buddha. We believe our programs on Buddha Dharma TV will inspire peace lovers around the globe. Good night. Namo Buddhaya.